Aditya, we've got new pictures just coming in of Prime Minister Modi and President Putin traveling in the same car, presumably
Incredible.
towards their bilateral.
This is the Russian beast.
Yeah, this is in the beast. Are we sure this is the beast?
No, it's the Russian beast.
Vishnu's
comes in
probably
his own
traveled in the
vehicles.
beast. That's why he knows. But yeah, this is Prime Minister Modi and
This
President
is Putin's
Putin.
beast.
Both sort of smiling in the Russian beast, headed towards the venue for their bilateral. Aditya, talk over these pictures. The bilateral is happening at the Prime Minister's hotel, the President's hotel. Where is it happening?
It's happening, I think, at the Russian president's hotel, and that's where they are heading because there is paucity of time. The plenary session continued for a longer duration than it was planned, and that's why it seems a last-minute decision has been taken. And President Putin actually offered to Prime Minister Narendra Modi to, together visit the hotel for the bilateral, because during the time that they are in the car, they will get time to speak as well. That also speaks of the friendship and the bonhomie. In my mind comes the Alaska Summit, but that was not as friendly as these visuals really are, because at that time, Putin was in the beast as well with Trump. Alaska Summit did not actually end up like Trump would have wanted, but this time, another visual from another part of the world where Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in fact accompanying President Putin for the bilateral, which will be beginning any moments now. We'll get those visuals also from the big bilateral, the big handshake between Putin and Modi taking place in a few minutes from now, where Ukraine crisis, and apart from that, trade tariffs and how to make India-Russia trade deals, defense partnership, and overall relationship to be taken to another level. So very, very incredible visuals of Trump, of Putin and Modi in his car coming, and anytime the bilateral should be beginning.
Again, Vasudha Venugopal for more on that, but we are joined now by General Soy and Ambassador Veena Sekhri. Ma'am, your thoughts first on this particular picture. Every single thing that we've seen since morning, all the pictures, none of them a coincidence. The smiles, the little huddle of the three leaders together. Now this of the Prime Minister traveling in the Russian president's beast. What do you make of this? Your first thoughts when you see this, the little bit of a half smile on both their faces, the whole importance of them traveling together for their bilateral. Ambassador Sekhri.
Here, I think that, first of all, as you've been discussing, the joint declaration is very remarkable, and it is absolutely a big victory for all the points that India had been asking for. I think the trilateral, the pull-aside trilateral between President Putin, President Xi Jinping, and Prime Minister Modi was very significant also. It was a very significant and determined message sent across. I must mention one, and I think right now, as you said, this bilateral between President Putin and Prime Minister Modi is going to be another important one. We will see a joint statement after that. I would like to say one point about the Tianjin declaration of the SCO Summit, and that is that, we have to push very hard on the implementation. Now, there is a regional anti-terrorism structure within the SCO. It's called RATS. And that structure has before it's based in Tashkent in Uzbekistan. That's the headquarters of RATS. And their task is to implement all these issues which are part and parcel of the SCO's work. And this is what our Prime Minister mentioned in his speech on security and on counterterrorism, against separatism and all of that. But the thing is that, like in SARC, the implementation part just falls by the wayside. SARC also had a similar counterterrorism structure. The headquarters was is in Sri Lanka, but nothing ever happened after the joint declaration. Now, this is what we have to push for, that when this, having got this joint declaration, we have to go ahead with the implementation. We have to say that, okay, these are the people who are responsible, these are the institutions who are responsible. All the information that we have pointing to Pakistan's culpability and involvement in the Pahalgam attack is to be brought out clearly, so that Pakistan stands shamed on the global stage. Because otherwise, what Pakistan tries to do is they live with these declarations, as we saw Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif standing there looking very shamefaced indeed. But immediately afterwards, they will bounce back and do something the exact opposite. And right now, let me tell you that 2 days from now, China is having a huge parade in Beijing on the 80th anniversary of what they are describing as the Chinese defeat of Japan in World War II. And there are only 2 countries invited for that parade, Pakistan and Nepal. So, one can imagine that I think what Shehbaz Sharif will do, I understand that at the SCO Summit, he hasn't even got a meeting with President Xi Jinping. I think he's only met the Chinese Prime Minister. But certainly when he goes to Beijing, then he's going to try to make up for it and come up with statements which he thinks will show the Chinese support for Pakistan. So this is what we have to watch out for, the implementation. Unless that happens...
Just a few months ago, sorry to interrupt you, ma'am, just a few months ago, and because the contrast is so stark. A few months ago, we had an agreement which Rajnath Singh, the defense minister, refused to sign on because it made absolutely no mention of Pahalgam. And now not only has Pahalgam been named in the joint declaration, but you've also got an unequivocal condemnation and a call that its perpetrators, financiers should be brought to book. What do you think changed in the intervening months?
I think in the intervening months, I think, I would say right from the meeting between President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi in Kazan last year, the breakthrough has been coming gradually. There's been a thawing. There was a kind of the initial de-escalation at and the start of the patrolling at Dipsang and Dimchok. And then after that, when Foreign Minister Wang Yi came to India, I think that is when the consolidation of the de-escalation agreement on border management has been worked out. And building upon that, I think that the meeting between President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi, where again our Prime Minister mentioned about cross-border terrorism and related issues. So I think this has been a gradual build-up. It's very important. I think it's very significant in the context of India's strategic autonomy and in the context of India's multi-alignment. It certainly is a very good response to what we are seeing from Peter Navarro, getting more and more apoplectic in the kind of verbal warfare he's launched against India, talking now about caste and so on, which is absolutely unacceptable. So I think that this is a build-up. Now we have to continue to build upon this. And I think the pull aside between the three leaders, President Xi Jinping, President Putin and Prime Minister Modi, was very significant. I think we will be able to build upon it. Let us see what President Putin and Prime Minister Modi talk about in terms of the end to the Ukraine war. We know that President Zelensky has already telephoned Prime Minister Modi on this. So I hope that we will have something on that, pushing towards a breakthrough in the peace negotiations. And India's role in this, I think, can be significant. And I hope that there will be a definite outcome of that. But together with President Putin, if we can push for a strong implementation, if SCO can show the way to counter terror, because this is part of their original brief, counter terror, counter separatism, extremism, and point to the people who are doing exactly that.